Although I feel like the last two episodes we've just been kind of like, what are we doing with our lives?
I was just going to say for our listeners, if we have just been bitching too much on here, please, I apologize. Hello, and welcome to the Practical Palette Podcast.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Mark, and we'll explore the world of fine art and representational painting through the lens of philosophy, art history, and our own art making practices. Today, Tara and I will be talking about the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Hey,
Good morning.
how art thou?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm good too. It's so cold in the studio. I keep turning off and on the heat because like if I'm not going to be out here, I don't want to heat it.
Mhm.
And I was at a jewelry making class all weekend, and so I had the heat off, but last night it felt like the real feel was like 8 degrees. So
Oh,
now I'm
geez.
cold, like layers and layers on.
Yeah, yeah.
I could have sat in the house, but I didn't. What did you have a good, how long has it been? A week, week and a half, week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's been good. What even happened? I don't know. It's just been working, you know.
Yeah.
Um, what was the last episode we did? It
I
was
think
studio
messy
practice.
video. Yeah.
I don't I want to say like life's been busy, but it hasn't. I don't know. It's just been just work, you know.
That's funny.
The jewelry class, was it like specific techniques or just kind of an all-encompassing general
Um,
class?
so I wanted to go more for an open studio because I've done it. I did a chain making class.
Hmm.
Um, and I ended up signing up for a balled wire class, which is like where you ball the ends of like sterling wire so that the ends are kind of nice, have like a nice little ball on it. You have to like heat it up with a torch and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then you can make like bracelets or jewelry or whatever for Christmas for people, that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Um, so but it turned into I was making a couple necklaces, and it's just interesting to me. Everybody's teaching style um is so different. And
Hmm.
so I just remember I worked at MICA for a hot minute, the Maryland
Hmm.
Institute College of Art. And I was just like an admin assistant. I wasn't like doing anything artsy. And you could take free classes. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I had taken pottery before. You and I have talked about pottery.
Hmm.
Um, so I've taken pottery before. And, when you think about centering clay on a wheel, um, people would just say, like, don't move your arms, like,
Hmm.
sit still kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was always like, yeah, it's easy to say don't move your arms, but then you have this big lump of clay that's like going in circles. That's kind of
Hmm.
like forcing your arms to move. And when I was at Micah, I took a ceramics class with Sarah Barnes was her name. And she said, not only like don't move your arms, which is obvious, but she said, anchor them on your legs when your legs are kind of open around the wheel. You anchor your elbows onto your legs, basically. And she says, if your hands aren't moving, the clay has no option other than to conform to your hands, period. It can't go anywhere else because you're not moving. And so it forms to your hands, and then you center the clay. And so to me, that was like light bulb, like, oh, now I understand. It was like other teachers had just said, don't move your hands.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was always kind of like, yeah, but like, I understand what you're saying, but I didn't understand the broader picture of the context of the why piece.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting to me because I think that people either kind of speak a language that makes sense to your brain
Hmm.
when they're teaching, or somehow there's a generosity component with the information that they're willing to share.
Hmm.
And it's always interesting to me. how that differs from person to person. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, it was interesting. I just felt like, I don't know, I'm not like gonna take up jewelry or anything.
Hmm.
Um, but I did get some gifts made, which was nice, and
Hmm.
I had fun, and it's really, really hard on your hands, truly.
Oh, yeah.
Very hard on your hands and really easy to like forget that things are hot and burn yourself and that kind of thing too. Because
Yeah.
I would like heat something and I'd walk away and I'd come back and I knew I just heated it, but sometimes like in my head it would have cooled off in that time. Like
Hmm.
but it's metal, so it's still very hot. So there were a couple like, oh, damn it, Tara, why did you touch that again? Like that was hot. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so a couple of those minutes, but
Yeah.
um overall it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a such an interesting point you bring up about teachers, because I think the best teachers. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this. Like, I've taken workshops with specific artists because I like their work. Now,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say I've ever had a bad experience at a workshop, um, but being a good artist does not always equate to being a great teacher. I think the great teachers know what you need to hear,
Mhm.
in order to convey the thing, and that differs wildly from person to person. So for you with the clay wheel, just that added detail of uh, the clay will conform to your hands if you don't move them. Like, that's not too different from just don't move your hands, but framing
Right.
it that way for you specifically, like that's a really good thing that that teacher was able to pick up on, or maybe that was just her way of um,
Yeah.
conveying that information. But
Yeah, it is
uh,
interesting. And you're right. I don't think being good at something makes you a good teacher.
mhm,
Um, and it's funny because I have been doing a lot of teaching, and a lot of people don't even know why they're there. They could be there for
mhm,
things that they aren't aware of. So they could be
mhm,
there for affirmation, they could be there for entertainment, they could be there for any variety of reasons. And they don't always know why they're there either. Like, if you're not it's good to have an awareness and just say, am I doing this for entertainment? Am I doing this because I want someone to help me feel better about myself, or like
mhm.
affirm me. It's just really interesting to kind of across the board see what that's like. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah. I just I try and be really generous with information. And I don't, and my goal is not to create a bunch of little Terras like running around.
Mhm,
That's not something that I don't think it's conducive to self-development for other people because you're not developing yourself if you're trying to be me. And I don't, I'm not like, I don't have this ego that demands me create more of me. Like,
yeah.
so it's just interesting. I think I try and like give information and let people run with it. And I don't know that I think that all people are willing to do that.
I mean, even a great teacher is not going to reach every student because that there has to be a willingness on the student's part, to be ready to receive that information at the same time.
Right.
Um,
But also, I feel like it's important as a teacher not to like inflict your will on a student as
oh,
well.
for sure,
No.
for sure, yeah.
So there's this, I just think it's really interesting because also how much that could influence someone's positive or negative feelings about what they're doing is
Hmm.
kind of fascinating, I think, too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I teach 4 or 5 workshops throughout the year, which is plenty for me. But yeah, you're right. There's always like everyone's coming for a different reason. Some people just want to have a good time. I get excited when there's some young people in the workshop because like that's where I was when I was, either in college or when I started taking workshops. Was I'm there as a sponge. I want to soak up as much information as I possibly can. And not to say that's only young people. It runs the gamut. But I like that to get really nerdy and get into the weeds on stuff. Like that's what I love to do. And not everyone is there for that. So you do kind of have to cater it to everyone. But then when you're I don't know how you set up your workshops, but like when I have one-on-one time with each student, that's where we can really hone in on specific needs, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I tend to like demo. I like to isolate ideas. So
Hmm.
be like, we're doing this demo and the sole focus of the demo is value, let's say.
Hmm.
Um, everything I do is going to try and emphasize that specific idea and then release them to find a way to find it in their own references because it like trains your eye to look for that thing because people immediately the question is often like, well, I don't have a good reference for that. Can I invent it? And I'm like, you could, but that doesn't really train your eye to find it. Like maybe instead look harder in what you have and see if there's a way to like pull something out of what you have. Which also brings me to that whole what was that thing called where you can't see images in your head? I think it's aphantasic or
Oh,
something, and
something like that.
aphantasic, I think. Um, I I never like when I started painting, I never have an end result in my head. Never. I have never had an end result in my head. It always,
Hmm.
I have the information I have. It's like putting a puzzle together, but I don't know what the picture looks like at the end of the puzzle.
Hmm.
Whereas I think a lot of people have this like preconceived notion of what they want that painting to look like when they're done. And so
Hmm.
I guess like there's a benefit to not being able to see that because like I'm never really disappointed because I never really had an expectation, if that
Hmm.
makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting because, you say like students will say, well, can I invent it or make it up? And I'm like, well, I would need the information to process it because I mean, I know how things behave, but I couldn't just like close my eyes and picture anything at all.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so maybe they would be capable of that, and I'm just not capable of teaching that. But I just think that's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting idea. Like, when you start a painting, do you have an idea in your head, like like a tangible conceptual image in your head that you expect the painting to look like when you're finished?
Uh, for the most part, no. Like I can't actually picture it in my head. Like if I do a small study, um, like actually right behind me, I've got little thumbnail sketches, and then I've got a painting.
Hmm.
And so the thumbnail sketches, I have a basic idea, like they're four values and big shapes. That's basically it. The sketch is helpful because I don't have to picture it. It's there. I can look at it and I can say that's good or that's bad or this needs to shift this way. I can make value judgments on that. Uh, so it's all there in front of me, and then I can work on the actual painting. Um, so I don't have like the whole thing, the whole image in my head. I actually kind of went down this rabbit hole a while ago, where I was trying to equate uh, painting to chess. And in this way, I was trying to picture the whole thing. So like in chess, you're thinking like five, six moves ahead. You can see a whole order of operations, um, and you can predict different situations. So if I move this, then he does this, this, and this, and then I would respond this way. So you can kind of think about it in those terms, which ended up not being very helpful because it just that's too much to keep in your mind, or at least for me. And I liked the analogy, but it just kind of felt flat on a practical level. Like it didn't work for me. So I can see some things in my mind, like if I need to extend a line, uh, out, and I'm like, okay, where does that line need to end? If I picture it, then it should be there. I can do that, but like that's kind of it.
Hmm.
Um, it's not it's not so much like in my head. It helps, and maybe it's because we're working in this representational world where there are so many variables that you need to keep track of that it's just hard to keep that all in your head.
Yeah.
Um,
And I wonder, I would be very curious. Leave a comment on YouTube or in Spotify. I think they can do comments in Spotify.
mhm.
Um, if you do paint and you do have an image in your head, I would love to hear about how that works because I think that's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
So drop a
Yeah,
comment. Isn't that what the cool kids say?
that is. We're cool kids, so we can say that.
We are.
So all of this, I think this does kind of relate to what we're talking about today, which is the book Flow, um, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. So
Mm-hmm.
hold up right there. Um, and I looked up the author's name. It is, or at least from what I could find, the pronunciation is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. So
She sent
you
me
were
high.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. That's exciting. It's a really dense book. I kind of forgot how
Mhm.
dense it is. And I
Yeah.
don't know that all of it is necessarily applicable to painting specifically, but there are definitely some chapters that I think are more applicable. What did you think about it?
For sure. It was interesting. So broad strokes, I liked it. There were parts of it that were, like you said, dense and I thought fairly academic, which
Hmm.
I kind of appreciated. It doesn't necessarily make for pleasant reading, those portions. Um, but it was good information and like it didn't feel like a self-help book. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
In that sense. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, it felt
Um,
more like you said, academic or like investigative almost.
mhm.
Like,
I don't know if you felt this way. There were a lot of the ideas. So this was, I think, published in the 90s, maybe a little earlier. I feel like a lot of the ideas were just kind of out in the zeitgeist. Like I was aware of a lot of these the topics before reading it. So it was some of it was new information, or at least framed in a very interesting, concise way
hmm.
that maybe I hadn't heard before. But the idea of a flow state or getting into the zone, I was quite familiar with. Which maybe we should actually define what that is. So I took some notes. I didn't send them your way, but so I've got for flow, it is a psychological state in which a person is fully absorbed in an activity, focused and energized, and experiencing enjoyment and meaning during the activity itself. Does that kind of vibe with what you
Yeah,
took away from it?
absolutely. Yep.
So I guess with painting, I mean, I think most of us have experienced this, I hope, where, you start painting and then all of a sudden 6 hours have gone by, you missed lunch and you just didn't even know. You were just so absorbed in what you were doing. And that seems like the rarefied air. Like that's when I don't want to say that normally equates to good work, but I always feel good about the work I have done when that happens.
Hmm.
Or at least it's a very pleasing experience to just lose the time like that.
Um, I thought it was interesting when he gets into it's almost like a graph of like how to achieve a flow state. Did you see that in
Mm-hmm.
there?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think he is right in having this kind of dichotomy of anxiety and boredom. Did you pick
Hmm.
up on that? When you talked about that, finding that flow state, I just highlighted this because I thought it was interesting. It provided a sense of discovery, a creative feeling of transporting the person to a new reality, and pushed a person to higher levels of performance and led to previously undreamed of states of consciousness.
Hmm.
And that's what I kind of gathered as like you were talking about the definition.
Hmm.
Like that sounds really beautiful, but how do you get there kind of thing, you know?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
um I also thought this was interesting in the context of art because I've heard a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
where there's almost like so much anxiety that they can't get over themselves to like work. Do you know
Hmm.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I typed a little quote thing too. Anxiety is the concern that we don't have the skills that we need to approach the challenge ahead. And boredom is having excessive skills, but not adequately challenging ourselves to use the skills that we've attained.
Hmm.
And he says happiness is the side effect of personal dedication to a course greater than oneself, and we need to seek out courses that seem greater than ourselves. And I think that's a really interesting idea what makes you anxious typically is that you don't feel like you have the tools you need to do the thing that you are supposed to or should be or want to do. And so, how do you develop those skills to do that thing you want to do?
Mhm.
And I thought it was
I
interesting too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just on that imposter syndrome. I mean, what immediately sprung to mind for me was plein air events. Like when you first start doing a plein air event. Luckily, I never really suffered from this. Maybe I just have too big of an ego, but where uh, I would be talking to other artists. Maybe it was their first time doing a juried show or an invitational or something like that, and they're just overwhelmed, thinking, "Oh, like I really need to perform. I can't. I need to do good work." And my thinking on it is like, you already did that work. That's how you got here. Like you're good enough. Now just show up and paint. You know how to paint, so just paint.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like, and I don't want to say I've never experienced that. I certainly have, because if you do like a couple bad paintings at the beginning of the week, then you're like, oh, I am on track to embarrass myself, so I better pick it up. But you're in that specific situation, you're kind of conflating something that's out of your control, that people's perception of you and your work with the work itself. And, like what the book would say is, actually to think about the specific and quantifiable tasks at hand. Okay, stop. What do I have to do this morning? Okay, go out, find a location, find a good composition. Okay, check, done that. Now, how do you actually break down a painting? And when you do that, it kind of blocks out all the other extra noise.
Hmm. Yeah, because he also talked about that idea of the oh, I put a little bookmark, but of course it wasn't where I wanted it. Um, what was the word he called for the person who makes his own goal? Ah, here it is. Sorry. It took me a second. Um, the autotelic self is what you're
Mm.
describing to me,
Hmm.
where he says like that person has self-contained goals.
Hmm.
So what I'm hearing you say that relates back to that is this idea that, someone's perception of you is not within your means of control. It's not an order or world or anything that you have any control over. And
Hmm.
instead of feeling completely out of control, you can instead make things that are doable, that are
Hmm.
self-contained goals. And in that way, you're kind of the person in charge of dictating what that looks like. And then you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about those other things.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's really interesting. Um,
Hmm.
the idea, well, I never really experienced the imposter syndrome thing either, but I
Hmm.
think it's funny how many people talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It,
Like,
I mean, I see it most at plein air events, which is interesting.
but don't
Um,
you think if somebody came up to you and was like, "Oh, I don't think I belong here," and I will tell you, like my first plein air experience, I was like freaking out. I
mhm,
thought I don't my work doesn't look like any of the work here. I'm gonna totally embarrass myself. But it
mhm,
wasn't that I didn't like the work. It was that I felt like I didn't fit in with the crowd of people.
mhm,
But I've never like doubted that I couldn't just like work my way into something. Like with
mhm.
heart with, the literal work,
Yeah.
figure out how something works and feel like I have the skill to do that and not feel like I have to diminish myself by thinking I'm a faker.
Mhm.
Like it's just a very foreign idea to me.
Yeah. 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 I similarly, I think. I mean, there have been shows that I've gotten into where I've been extremely excited and thought, "Oh, I'm punching above my weight class right now," but it never really got in the way because in those situations I've just been so excited to be there that
Hmm.
I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make the most of this opportunity.
Sure.
Um, Now that those are fairly specific situations where it's a show or a competition, and you can't really manufacture that in the studio necessarily. But I guess in a similar way, maybe you avoid certain subject matter because you think it's too complicated. Like I can't
Yeah.
draw the figure, so therefore I'm just going to not,
You mean
do
that
any figure
literally
painting.
for you personally or just
No, no,
generally?
I'm just more generally.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's. I'm sure there have been subjects that I've avoided because they seem too daunting, but it's usually out of like a realistic expectation of, well, that's just going to be way too much work, and I don't want to do that. It's not because I necessarily can't.
Hmm.
Um,
Don't you feel like as you
yeah.
put more tools in your belt, you
Mhm.
could like come back to that thing and be like, "Oh, now I know how to address it in a better way." You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
I've
Yeah.
done that. And it's funny, you and I come from very different locales. So I'm in Maryland, and
Mhm.
yes, we have water on the eastern shore of Maryland, but I am nowhere near. I'd have to drive, 3 hours to get to the coast.
Mhm.
Um, and so water in general is not something that I feel super compelled about. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not around it. It hasn't like informed my soul in any extreme way. Like
Mhm.
I know how to swim. Like I have a solid fear of understanding how powerful and majestic and beautiful water is. I know this is sounding kind of strange, but I promise you
Mhm.
it's going somewhere. And so when you put me in front of water, I'm like, okay, I could address it, but I don't have a connection to it. I'm like a
Mhm.
land animal, like very not
Yeah.
water or sky animal.
Mhm.
And so I remember I think I was at like Cape Ann or something, and
Mhm.
there's all these boats everywhere. Like I'm not used to drawing boats. I don't do like modes of transportation. They just don't interest me. It'd be like someone saying the figure doesn't interest them. I don't mind the figure,
Mhm.
but it's just not my like primary thing. But all of these boats, and I thought, oh crap. Like I know nothing about a boat. I don't know how a boat works. I don't know. I mean, I know it floats on water, but I'm saying like you could probably tell me every like technical term part of a boat
Mhm.
and I would know nothing about boats.
Yeah.
I've not lived around them. I mean I've been on them maybe 5 times in my life. Like
Uh-huh.
I know nothing about boats.
Yeah.
And so I go to this competition and it's like all boats everywhere and water.
Mhm.
And I was just kind of like, holy crap. And so I texted a friend who's like really good at boats, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's all these boats." I was like, "Do you have any like tips or tricks about boats? Like what do I need to know about a boat, you know?"
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, can you draw a bathtub?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Then you can draw a boat." And I was like, "No, that wasn't good enough." But it's just funny because it's like you do come to some of these things without where you feel like deficient in the skill or the detail or the
Mhm.
knowledge that you need to like really assess something in a good way. And um it is interesting how that does increase your anxiety and how that is different. Like you put me in front of a tree, I could paint trees all day long. And some people hate
Mhm.
painting trees. Like
Mhm.
they would much prefer a landscape sans a big tree with these, big open branch holes that I think are really fun and exciting. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of funny how that works out. And one of the
Yeah.
things that he says is like if you're anxious about painting, the way to get into that flow state is to increase your skills. So how do you
Mhm.
increase your skills? Draw more boats. Like,
Yeah.
there is no other way. I could study boats all day long and without the like muscle memory of practice of drawing them, it would be kind of useless, I think.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah. That actually, I think one of the chapters is about, let's see if I've got the body in flow, which was actually more about like physical activity. So like, exercise, well, sports and more physical activities.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and strangely, I think painting actually fits in that category quite a bit because you talked about muscle memory. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the things we're doing, mixing paint, just drawing, stuff like that. Those are specific movements you've practiced over and over again that when you're not thinking about them, that frees up more mental space for other assessments. So like what color is this? What value is it? So you're not there's just way more mental space freed up,
Sure.
um, which helps you, yeah, keep going in the flow state,
Well,
keep
you think of
making
like someone who's playing piano. Like, have you seen
mhm,
those like amazing? They don't need the music to look at anymore because their muscle
mhm,
memory is like they've just done it so many times that it's just like it's almost like a dance to watch. Like
mhm.
they're in a flow state for sure.
Yeah.
And you're right, like that muscle memory of, the mixing the paint, the comfort with which you hold your brush, like the confidence in which you lay down a mark or any of
Hmm.
that is definitely, there is that muscle memory piece to it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with mark making. Yeah. And you talk about confidence. I remember I had a class in college. It was called presentation techniques. And it was basically all about, well, a huge portion of the class was learning how to draw in perspective. Um, but it was about doing like marker ideation sketches and stuff like that. So product design or any kind of design, you're going to do a lot of stuff like that. Anyway, I think we spent one entire class period just drawing circles and squares, and just to develop because if you've never drawn a circle before or like really tried, you might do that really chicken scratch kind of like very shaky circle. Um, But once you build up that, the whole arm movement, you can draw a very convincing circle pretty easily.
Hmm.
And again, that's just that muscle memory, practicing it almost as a meditation, and it'll just kind of through osmosis, you will pick it up. I mean, not
Right.
actual osmosis, through practice, you'll pick it up. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. I think it's important because also, um, so during COVID, I had a friend who's a model and I was like, "Hey, will you do like Zoom modeling for me? Like, I just want 60-second poses. I want," and she was a professional oh shoot, like a contemporary dance
Mm,
person. And
mhm,
so really understood the line and the form of her body. And I'd say, all right, let's do 60-second poses. Let's do 10 and then we'll break for a second or for 5 minutes or whatever. And I'd say, I want squares. And she'd, you know, make herself into a square somehow.
mhm.
Each one was different. Or I'd say, I
Yeah,
want verticals, I want horizontals, I want squares.
yeah,
And she knew exactly what I wanted. And so every 60 seconds, you had 60 seconds to get that information down. How can you
mhm,
convey that thing in 60 seconds, which isn't a ton of time, and make it feel right? And so we did that for probably 2 or 3 hour sessions, almost like weekly for like
mhm.
months. And
Yeah,
so you really get a sense of gesture and form when you only have 60 seconds to do it. And so
mhm.
that's the muscle memory piece too. It's like, well, how can you identify like what's important in a quick way? Well,
Yeah.
just set a timer and force yourself to practice that thing.
Mhm.
That's where that, releasing the anxiety piece because you feel like you've done that and you're comfortable with what you've learned,
Yeah,
is really important, I think.
yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I mean, I took a lot of life drawing in college, and most life drawing groups will start out with, 30-second gestures, work up
Mhm.
to a minute, and then 5 minute, 10 minute, and then you get into the longer pose. And I'm out, I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people feel this way, like just kind of hating going through those warm ups, and we're like, just let's get to the good stuff.
That's really
Um,
hilarious because I'm the opposite. I'm like, oh, I love this warm-up stuff. Ugh, now it's like 3 hours.
oh, funny. Uh, but no, I certainly grew to appreciate it because when you, especially with the form, and you're seeing all these flowing lines and how the body can do these really graceful forms, it's all about that gesture to like really get that feel. Otherwise, if you just jump straight into a long pose, um, it can often feel too boxy or too rigid.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so it's having an understanding of those gestures and how everything kind of flows and connects. Um, you kind of need to put those marks down quickly in a gesture drawing to like really understand what how that all works, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
That's funny. I like the warm up part. Well, I took a workshop with Peggy Cole Roberts, and every day we did. Now, I'm not a contour girly, generally speaking.
mhm,
I think I'm more gesture than contour. She's more contour than gesture. And we did blind contours. I think we had a minute every day,
mhm,
totally blind contour. You had to like cover your book and draw underneath.
mhm,
Um, and it was fascinating. When I did it and I started on one side of the figure, like let's say there's like a standing figure, and I
mhm,
started like from the top of the head and I went to the left, I
mhm,
would get around and I'd do a figure, and the figure would be kind of like fat, like bulbous, like bigger than I meant for it to be. And
mhm,
if I took the pencil and I went into the right instead of the left, and I
mhm,
went around that way, it almost like it made it like a figure that was like either the line had overlapped where it was almost like the figure was like a single line. I think I
uh-huh,
have it. I'll have to see if I can find it. Um, so like if I went in one direction, it was too fat, and if I went in the other direction, it was like a stick figure. It was like too
yeah, yeah.
skinny. It was
Uh-huh.
kind of fascinating. And I was like, what a good exercise to just like wake your brain up, I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's fun. Um,
Oh, we can get into this later, but I looked up some strategies for getting into flow states,
yeah,
um, and one of them was um, certain rituals you'd start the day with. Um, so something like that. Like
yeah.
you're talking about waking up your brain. Um, that might work well for some people. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but someone might like it.
I mean,
Anyway.
I would do the same thing in a more gestural way.
Mhm,
But it was really fascinating. I'm gonna have to see if I can jump up and I think I have it. Hang on one second.
mhm,
You're gonna have to cut this. So, for example, I thought this was so funny. So these, she would hold a pose, and um you would blind contour so you can't see what you're doing. But I would start on, let's say I was going to like the left side. So let's say
mhm,
this was
mhm.
the left side. If I started in the same spot on the right side, I'd get like that. Can
Oh,
you
that's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like on one side of I know my thing's like going weird. Like on one side of my brain, it would be like like an overlapping,
Mhm.
and then if I went in the opposite direction, it would be like a fatter figure.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if you can see that. It was fascinating. I'm like, isn't that so interesting? Like you can tell I went from one side or the other side.
Hmm.
Like how weird
Yeah,
is that? Brains are cool.
yeah.
So it's just a good exercise to like none of these are worth anything, or I'm not saying worth anything is I'm just saying like we constantly try and assign ourselves the things that we do saleable value, not
Hmm.
just optimal learning conditions to like learn something. I think it's
Hmm.
important to be able to say, I'm creating this because I want to increase my skills, not because I need to sell it or want to sell it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I think those are kind of different things personally.
Hmm. That's actually I don't know if it was a big thing in the book, but the idea of kind of separating the product from the practice or the process.
Hmm.
Um, and again, that goes into like your expectations and where your focus is. I mean, a lot of it is all about controlled focus. So if
Hmm.
we're thinking about the task at hand rather than the end product or what the end product means or the ramifications of the end product, like this product, I need to sell it and therefore I can continue to pay my bills or whatever. Um, if you're if you completely separate yourself from that and only think about what does this contour look like going from the right or the left,
Hmm.
uh, or not even again not the expectations, but literally as you're thinking, what's happening with the line as I'm moving it.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of what we're going for, you know.
Yeah. And he did note something because I know we've kind of mentioned plein air a couple times. When he was talking about competition, um,
Hmm.
and he said competition is only enjoyable when it's a means to perfect one's skill. When it
Hmm.
becomes an end in itself, it ceases to be fun. And
Hmm.
so competition should be an opportunity for you to increase your skills by, comparing yourself to yourself. Like, okay, I did an event last week and now I'm at one this week. Is the work I'm doing today better than the work I was doing last week? And
Hmm.
not comparing yourself to others.
Hmm.
It goes back to that I can't remember this word, autotelic self is that, are we dictating those goals? Are we creating them? Is it within the means of us to understand what the goal is?
Hmm.
Or like you said, it's a world that's something that's out of our control. Like we don't have control over the work that other people are producing. We don't have control over what a judge likes. We don't have control over how anyone feels about the work we're doing.
Hmm.
But we do have control over setting that goal and comparing ourselves to the previous work that we did. Like that's something that you can control,
Yeah.
um, which I think is really a good thing to keep in mind.
Hmm. Yeah. There's another thing I've noticed about competition, as specifically plein air competitions, because that's what a lot of our experiences are.
Mhm.
Um, like I love those weeks because I don't have to think about anything else. Like the outside world kind of doesn't exist. It's just I'm here to paint. I get up in the morning, I think about painting, and that's all it is. And like you said, it's not so much about trying to win an award. It's what is the best painting that I can do today, or
Mhm.
it is much more reflective of your past work, your what you've done that week so far. Um, and like I think I might even mention this in a past episode, but like I find it much easier to get into a flow state at plein air events or just plein air painting uh, rather than the studio because in the studio I think I'm um, like life is all around you, all the distractions, all the this life stuff.
Mhm.
Whereas at a plein air event, it's easier for me to kind of block all that out. Now, why that is, I could probably pick that apart a little bit, uh, but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between the two, plein air versus studio.
Mhm.
Has that been your experience or?
Um, I feel like I can be easily distracted anywhere. No, I only say that because this time I did go to Door County this year and I brought the
Mhm.
family and
Mm.
I really enjoyed them seeing that landscape. We had a really nice time, but it is, like you said, um, basically like bringing a distraction with you that like you
Mhm.
feel like, oh, I have to meet them for lunch at X amount of time. And, like,
Mhm.
and there was absolutely no pressure from them on me. It was more like pressure I put on myself to also be there with them while I was trying to do the event. And I find
Mhm.
that during an event, I typically, you're right. I get up and I paint until I'm out of energy for painting and then
Hmm.
find something else to do until I have the energy to do it again. And
Hmm.
in the studio, I was thinking about this because we were talking about like that state of flow, and I was thinking about printmaking and like um the mastery of the skill and the repetition of the skill. And I love carving. I could carve all day long, but I'm
Hmm.
very comfortable with how to make the mark that I intended to make in carving.
Hmm.
When it comes to the printing process, I hate it. It's like so meticulous and so anal and so everything has to be pristine and clean and perfect and there's so many opportunities for you to be sloppy about something or forget something or touch something or have something on your hand and
Hmm.
so to me I hate the printing part and I was talking to a friend and he said he's like, well, all these famous printers, they carve the block and then they hand it off to a printer, like who prints it. Because like
Yeah.
you don't have to wear every single hat that exists. And I'm kind of like, but I do. Like I need to be able to do this on my own. And I
Yeah.
think I had gotten into that flow state one time with printing where I was
Hmm.
just like everything was just working. It was like I'd roll the ink on. You have to roll it on like so many times to really make sure that you get everything super even. And then you have to like place the paper down perfectly in the center and you have to have like your press set up to the right pressure and you have to it's like this very meticulous, very ordered activity that is so contrary to my nature that I've only ever been in the flow state doing that one time. And I'm
Hmm.
like really, really getting into it. And like somebody knocked on the studio door and was like, hey, what's up? Like, let's chat. And I was like, damn it. Like, it was the only time I had ever experienced it with that. And so, but when I think about it, part of the reason why I don't enjoy that is because it's not that I don't know how to do it. It's that
Hmm.
I haven't done it enough to feel like I don't have there for me personally that is also an element of like I feel like I'm wasting supplies and I hate that because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I messed up another print. There goes $5 for that sheet of paper. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I just it drives me crazy from the fiscal perspective, but it's that it's that would be a perfect place to get lost in a flow state.
Hmm.
And for some reason, my brain doesn't want to do it. But I think it's because I'm not that good at it. And if I did it over and over and over and over, I could be good at it. And
Hmm.
then, that other friend's like, but is that the best use of your time? Like, is your
Yeah.
goal in life to be not necessarily, you could carve a beautiful block and send it off to a printer and a printer can print it for you and you can just pay them for their services because that's their specialty. That's what
Hmm.
they've done over and over for
Yeah.
that muscle memory. But
Yeah.
I just want to wear all the hats. I need to
Yeah.
stop wanting to wear all the hats, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you describe that process because like the actual printing process because I'm thinking, yeah, I could totally just get right in the zone with that. Um, but I understand what you're saying. I would equate it. For me, it's similar to woodworking where there is a certain level of precision
Hmm.
that's necessary and safety. You have to be aware of what's happening at all times. And it's similar with carving a block. You got to know. Um, it's depending on how you do it. It's either easy or not that easy to stab yourself. Um, but if you're doing a wood cut, you have to be aware of the wood grain, so make sure you're not getting tear out or weird things like that. All sorts of things that kind of go into it and a certain level of focus that's necessary. Um, but repetitive tasks like printing can be too boring. I get for the woodworking analogy or parallel would be sanding. Sanding is so important. Like you need to the level of finish you take a project to is very important to the overall success of the piece. But It's by far and away the most boring and repetitive part, and it
Hmm.
takes up like 50% of the time. So it's just the worst. Uh, but even in that, if you can find a way to uh, you know, channel your focus, it can be enjoyable.
Yeah,
Um,
like the fireplace tiles that I made,
mhm,
that was so repetitive and so zen-like because
mhm,
I would like all I did was really I like rolled these little balls of clay into a circle and then I'd squish it into like a pancake and I'd cut it in half. And
mhm,
then I'd take it and you have to score like rough up the side that you're attaching to the tile and score the tile and put slip on that piece. So every single one of those pieces is individually connected onto that tile. And
mhm.
so I definitely can get into a Zen repetition state. I just can't do it with the printmaking thing, which is disappointing because there's
Yeah.
just like I would inevitably like have a little bit of ink on my finger and the one like you touch the paper and you're like, oh, So
Yeah.
maybe I'll come to be able to do that. Maybe that's what I should work on in the studio because I have all these blocks now and I can't really do anything with them and I like them, but
Mhm.
I much more enjoy the carving piece than the printing piece. But
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
mm,
I would say for me the carving portion. I mean, it's been a few years since I've done any uh, printmaking, but the carving portion was always way more enjoyable. Um,
mhm,
yeah, I, well, it's less repetitive, but it is also like I remember a couple of times in college, and I would wait till the very last minute to get my block done. But I would just spend, all day or half a day or however long it took just working on that. And it was the most enjoyable portion of it. And we're like,
mhm.
why don't I just, why was I putting this off? Because you get into it and you're like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
It's wonderful when you get into that flow state. I say I I also feel like, and this is not a knock to teaching, but when you're teaching and you're demoing,
mhm,
you're not just painting, you're painting and thinking and talking, and
mhm,
you're breaking down what you're doing so that people understand what you're doing. And
mhm,
so, I'm not sure that you can achieve a flow state when you're doing that. That doesn't mean your demos can't be successful. They can. But
mhm,
I personally, I can't get into that flow state when kind of describing what I'm doing to someone and why I'm doing it. It's
mhm,
almost like your brain, it's like circuit overload or something. It's like you can't get there because you're distracted by this other thing where you're trying to explain everything that you're doing.
mhm.
Um, so I feel like you can't do a flow state while you're teaching. Maybe somebody, once again, drop in the comments. I'd love to hear what anybody else thinks about it. But do you feel that way too?
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you certainly can't achieve a flow state of painting, but is there a flow state of teaching?
Oh, that's a
You
good
know,
thought. Yeah.
like so for me when I'm demoing, I that's the most enjoyable portion of maybe again, maybe this is just too big of an ego thing. But I love demoing, but it's the one-on-one time after the demo. Not that I don't enjoy it, I do, but it's these, you know, 5-minute chunks with each student that are so wildly different because, like we talked about earlier, you're addressing different problems with people at different skill levels. So it's like every 5 minutes you're interrupting whatever state you had.
Hmm.
Um, so that's where, for me, time drags a little bit more. But during demos, not that time flies in the way that it does when I'm just painting on my own, but I do find it to be a little more, I don't want to say easy to focus, because like you said, you will be in the middle, like a very important passage in the painting, and then someone asks a question that completely throws you off. So that does happen, certainly, but
Hmm.
um, I think I've gotten better about just kind of maintaining some not a flow state, but some flow to the workshop where you can just kind of like stay level through the whole thing. I'm never fully invested in the painting because I'm always listening to what people are saying, but I'm also kind of aware of what I would say in response to some common questions. So it all kind of, muscle memory again, it all kind of like gets a little bit easier to just keep a level head while moving through. Does that make sense?
I really love that idea because I hadn't really thought of it that way. I had thought of it more as a not, I really enjoy teaching, but as
Mhm,
the teaching piece almost being a hindrance to getting into a flow state for painting
mhm,
in lieu of saying I'm in a flow state of teaching. Like that's
mhm,
a nice way to kind of remedy that. And it's
mhm,
funny because I don't I know you said you do 5 minutes with each one. I just like make myself available. So they start
mhm,
doing their thing and I walk around and if somebody says something, then I'm there. And if you don't,
mhm,
then I'm walking on to the next person kind of thing. And
mhm,
I feel like everybody gets what they want, but it's more casual, I would say, than a specific. And then we critique with each other, to
mhm.
like look at what everybody's up to kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like that idea, Mark.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Good, 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 good. You're teaching me. See?
Another thing, well, okay, so this is kind of departing from uh, certainly teaching, but uh, thinking about how do we apply some of this stuff to the studio,
Hmm.
or how is this relevant for the studio? Because I'll just say my experience lately, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but finding it much more difficult to focus in the studio and to kind of maintain that flow for more than an hour at a time. Where plein air painting, I could sit down, do a 4 hour painting and start to finish and not really, never really check my phone or anything like that. How is your experience in the studio? Like, is it similar or does it depend on the medium that you're using or?
I think it goes back to that challenge versus skill thing,
Mhm,
um, where the anxious or boredom options are available. And I think that lately for me in the studio, I think I've been kind of bored. I think
mhm,
I'm kind of hearing that from you as well, where
mhm,
you've developed these skills, you have these skills, and you don't perhaps feel like you're initiating challenges that are pushing those skills to their extreme use.
mhm,
Do you know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so for me, it's funny, I'm making a door for my bedroom. It's a door that goes in between a bathroom and the bedroom.
Mhm,
And I'm making it in stained glass, and I've done it now like 3 times. And I get to a point where I'm like, you know what? I just don't like this anymore. And I'll just take all the
mhm,
glass and it's cutting the pieces. It's making them fit like with a hair in between. I mean, this is
mhm,
not like I just sat some pieces on the ground and was like, do I like this color combination thing? So
mhm,
it's hours and hours and hours and hours of work. And then I'm like, no, don't like it. I'm gonna just start over. And I keep doing that. And so now I've been avoiding it. It's still sitting on the table. I mean,
mhm,
um, I'm finding that I'm making situations for myself out here where I'm avoiding doing the things that I should be doing. I don't
mhm,
know. I don't know what's going on with me. Although I feel like I'm hearing it from you too, where you get, you know what? I'm gonna go back to Csikszentmihalyi here,
mhm,
and I don't know the exact quote, so don't shoot. I wish I had it. Basically, like you can't accomplish a goal or feel like you've accomplished a goal unless you set the goal, right?
mhm.
So if my
Yeah.
goal was I'm going to finish this daggone door because I've done it now 5 times or whatever,
Mhm,
um, I probably would feel more successful in this space if I accomplished that goal. If
mhm,
I felt successful in that space, I'd want to be in that space.
mhm,
I wouldn't be avoiding coming out here because I know that I haven't figured out exactly what I want in that door. I've done it like
mhm.
I really have done it 3 times. Um, and so his point is you can't accomplish something or have the sense of accomplish or have the award of or reward of being accomplished or feeling like you finished something if you don't know what the thing is that you're attempting to accomplish,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so for so long in my career of sorts, it was like, oh, I want to try this plein air thing. Like, I'm going to do that. Okay, well,
Hmm.
I did it as a walk on. I want to be that juried person. And then you get that piece and you're like, okay, cool. I want to be in this event. And then you get that piece and you're like, I want to be in this event. And then you get that piece. And I want to have my own pastel set. And you get that piece. And I want a museum show. And then you get that piece and you say, but now what?
Hmm.
What do I want? And
Yeah.
I can't get the thing that I want if I haven't established what that thing is. And I think that you can take all those skills and apply them in a way that get you to that point. But if you don't know what that point is, you do face boredom, you face anxiety, and that, like, I don't really want to come out here because I know that door is kind of looming over my head. And I know that I don't know what I want and I don't know what the answer is.
Hmm.
And so I do think it's a combination of setting a hard goal, a goal that pushes you to the limit of what you're capable of doing. Like that fireplace, for example.
Hmm.
I almost threw those tiles all away because what happened was I didn't account for the shrinkage quite enough. Like I had made it proportionally bigger, but I didn't calculate the exact amount because this clay shrinks at different rates. Sometimes it could be 18% shrinkage, sometimes 20, sometimes 25, sometimes 10, you know.
Hmm.
And each clay tells you what that is, but you still are somewhat guessing a little bit, especially because I don't have a ton of experience with it. And I got it all finished and I laid it all out and I was like, holy crap, there's giant holes in this. I
Hmm.
made them too small.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of how I could do some kind of mosaic in between the pieces to kind of fill the gaps or whatever. And then I think it was my friend Carrie. I love Carrie. She was like, "Well, what if you took 2 pieces of wood and put them in the middle to like fill that gap and maybe a piece of trim on the top?" And we had already had wood trim that was kind of coming over the face of the fireplace, like a live edge of a shelf that kind of terminated into the fireplace.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's a great idea. And I had worked on that for probably 70 or 80 hours and I was ready to just throw them in the trash because I thought this isn't going to work. Um, and so I think doing something that the goal was to obviously finish the fireplace. And
Hmm.
um, you feel accomplished when you actually do it. And you're like, damn,
Hmm.
that felt really, really good. Now I have
Yeah.
like these tiles that I like. Um, but yeah. What are your current goals, I would say?
Well, it's interesting. That's the thing I've struggled with to a greater or lesser extent over the years. So like when just out of college, the goal was do art full time,
Hmm.
whatever that looked like. At that time I was trying to be an illustrator, so do illustration full time. And then when I started doing fine art, it was like to be doing that full time. So eventually I got there, and then it was okay, do this full time, but like live comfortably,
Hmm.
we don't have to have ramen every meal, that sort of thing. And so that goalpost is kind of shifted, but like that was the goal, like the biggest thing. If I could do that, I would be happy. Um, and I don't want to say be that dramatic about it, but it was like if I could achieve that, that's like my life's goal. Got there, and it was like, okay, now what? Well, just
Hmm.
keep doing it, and you start to find those smaller goals, like you said. So like get into this show, try and win this award, or that sort of thing. And not that those are um, goals in and of themselves; they are indications of your skill level getting better.
Hmm.
Um, and I was very aware of that, like we've talked about in past episodes of how empty some of those indicators are, those you win an award and it's like, yeah, but this judge just had a bias towards my type of painting, so that just worked for me. On a different day,
Mhm.
it's going to be a different judge. Doesn't mean your work was worse. It just, but you get enough of those indicators and tells you you're going in the right direction. But it becomes more and more abstract, I think, the further up you go, you know. Um, and you have to be way more aware of your own measuring stick, like is this painting good without any other external validation,
Mhm.
and that gets harder and harder, at least for me. I mean, you can get a sense, you finish a piece and you're like, yeah, I knocked that out of the park. And then you send it out to the world, you put it up on Instagram and it gets 5 likes and you're like, well, I still like it, but now I'm conflicted, you know. Um, so it's weird. It gets harder. But my goals, and again, this gets back to where I feel like some of this book was just out there in the zeitgeist because I was already aware that I need to be more interested in the process rather than the end product. And some days are good for that, some days not so much because I'm like, I just need to finish this painting because it is a product that I need to sell, you know.
Yeah.
But I have, and this was something in the book that I think it's been on my mind, but to have it crystallized a little bit better in the book was helpful. But to think about goals more on a micro level. So like, not even what are my goals for today, but like, what are my goals this morning until lunchtime? I need to finish
Mhm.
this section of the painting, and even get more specific about that. Like, what is in this section of the painting that I need to finish? I need to think about reflected light, line, color value, all those things. And again, it's more focusing your attention. It's thinking about very specific things, which starts to quiet all the noise on the outside. Um, so that's something I've really been trying to work on lately. And it again, it seems to help sometimes, not every day. But uh, so in terms of like micro goals, that's more what I'm thinking about is like specific things within specific paintings. Um, but yeah, the bigger goals they're getting more and more, I would say, abstract. There was a time, so actually, and maybe we should, I don't know if you'd be into this, doing a end of the year podcast. So maybe like in the next week or two,
Yeah.
um, of just reflecting on the year and then our goals for the next year.
Mhm.
So this is something my wife and I do all the time. We do that essentially, like kind of reflect on the past year and then what are our New Year's resolutions. And it's not so much resolutions as much as, put our goals out into the universe and just kind of
Sure.
verbalizing them, I think does help. Uh, it forces you to really focus it. Um, anyway, where was I going with that? My goals in past years, my goals have been like, get into a couple of galleries or specific galleries. Um, and yeah, again, you achieve that, and then it's like, well, now what? And it's always there's always something, but it always kind of comes back to doing the work, like being here in the studio, and all of those goals are again a reflection of the quality of the work to some extent. Um, so I'm trying to rein that in, uh, but it's getting harder and harder to pick goals because I think, at least for me on the business side, things are going well enough. There's not a lot of tweaks that I need to do, to keep the ship afloat.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's nice. What's
I
that
guess
like?
it's
Just kidding.
I do recognize like that is a privileged position to be in. But it's now I'm more focused on projects, I would say. Actually, probably getting closer to what you're doing in the studio where you've got like a lot of different disciplines going on all at the same time. I'm not quite as maybe scattershot as that, but um, yeah, it's more specific paintings or specific bodies of work that I want to produce, um, and then kind of go from there.
I think that
Yeah.
is interesting because I've always thought I've never really understood like the body of work concept.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe that's a good way to make that goal. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Yeah.
like let's say if you found something that you were hypothetically deficient in, like let's say, I say my oil skills are pretty deficient. Like what collection of work can I do to improve that skill, hypothetically?
Hmm.
The thing for me is that I get bored really easy. I know that sounds terrible, but
Yeah.
in that if I were to do a study of something, I don't I don't value the study as less than a painting.
Hmm.
Like to me, the study is a painting, and if I've solved a puzzle once, I don't really want to solve it again bigger. I
Hmm.
just did it. Like I already
Hmm.
did it. Why do I want to address it again?
Hmm.
Um, and then I think too that there are times where you could elaborate on that idea in a kind of more well-rounded way, I guess. But I think that comes back to kind of like your nature. Like you have natural inclination towards specific skills that come more naturally, or
Hmm.
mediums that come more naturally, or subjects that come more naturally. And so it's like, do I really want to change myself into that person who just in a body of work just kind of repeats the same idea? Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's this
Yeah.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
Or are you looking at that as an example of the pursuit of exploration of that idea into something deeper than, kind of a surface study of it? It's
Hmm.
neither is bad. I don't think either is wrong.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just interesting. I've just never been the type to like do a study and think it's less. Like
Yeah.
I see value in the study. And so to me, I'm like, I learned the thing that I wanted to learn in that, and then I don't need to just do it again, bigger.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
um, it's this weird thing. I don't know. And then it's like, well, if you don't know what that specific goal is, let's say your goal is to get like more museum shows. Like
Hmm.
to me, a museum show is like the pinnacle of art. And I think
Hmm.
that because it's not about making money, it's about communicating with an audience,
Hmm.
you know? And to
Yeah.
me, there's something very noble about producing a body of work that is strictly for communication, not you're not looking to get paid for it. It's almost like a public
Yeah.
service in that way.
Hmm.
And so if my goal was like, I want to be in a museum again, what do I have to do to get to that place? Well, I'd probably have to like research museums and, figure
Hmm.
out who has if they even have an application process or who their directors are, get a list of directors and just, the more crap you throw against the wall, something's got to stick kind of thing. And you just send them out to all these people and get the feelers out and, you know, I don't know. Like, is that the right answer? I don't know. But I will say I was like super proud of having that show. And I had a lot of people, pastels or not, I feel like we're generally like the redheaded stepchild of the art world. And
Hmm.
so I had a lot of peers and fellow artists who work in that medium who were like, I am so excited to see this medium in a museum
Hmm.
that we can come and look at it and we know who you are and you're alive, you're not dead. Like I took my friends 5 times, like, and I was like, that is so rewarding. And I went to visit with a friend. We drove from Maryland to Indiana to go see it. And when we went, there was a group of elementary school kids like looking at it. And it
Hmm.
was like, they were like, wow, like I like this part, or I like this one, or I like the color in that one, or I like the subject in this one. And then we were standing there, and I would never, I'm like I don't want to say like, this is gonna sound cocky. And And
Mhm.
it's a weird thing to feel cocky about being like humble. Like I'm a pretty humble person. And I think part of that is that like I am hard on myself. And so like I don't really care what anybody else thinks about what I'm doing. Like I know if I sucked or if I did a good job. And so if somebody came to me and said, that was amazing, I'd be like, thanks. Like, and if it wasn't amazing, I would still know it wasn't amazing. And if it was amazing, I'd be
Mhm.
like, oh, cool. They like think that I did something good and I like what I did.
Mhm.
Um, but so these kids come over and they're like, oh, I would have never said that I'm the person who did all the stuff on the walls. Like that's when I was, sorry, that's where I was going in that in the humble piece. Like I just would
Yeah, yeah,
never be like, I'm the one who did all this. Like that's just so contrary to like my fiber of
yeah.
my soul. And so I would have just like kind of snuck around and like listened to like what they said, like what they like, what they didn't like.
Mhm.
And my friend was like, "Oh, she's the artist," which I would never in a million years do, like I said.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the kids came up and they were like, "Oh, like, well, why did you do this here?" Or like, "Oh, I love the marks on this one," or "Oh, I love like the color of that one," or "Where is this? Where did you do this? Like, do you do it in a studio? You do it outside?" And it was just such a fun um experience and conversation to like little kids at museums are like looking at your stuff and you're like, that's so cool. Like some of them were like, I'm gonna go home and play with pastel. It's like this
Yeah.
very exciting thing. And to me, since that is kind of like the pinnacle of what I want, I think I'm fleshing out some ideas here of like how do I get to that place again? Because it is
Mhm.
such a gift to kind of serve the public in that way and have them get to experience it and have it presented. Does that sound
Yeah.
weird?
No, not at all. I mean, well, for starters, that sounds like an awesome experience. Not just to have the museum show, but then to like, if you're going to have an audience to actually, be a fly on the wall and hear
Yeah.
how they're taking it in. Yeah, a group of elementary kids. That would be a lot of fun. Um, but no, to use that as I don't want to be so crass and say as a motivator, but like as a goal, if we're gonna use those terms,
Hmm.
there's so much that can be wrapped up in that. Is like, well, one, what do you want to say in this show?
Hmm.
Two, how do you achieve that? Three, um, what are the different ways you can say either the same thing or kind of wrap your head around a specific topic. So I get a thing I've been thinking about lately is a lot of other media that I like. There's so many good TV shows out there these days.
Hmm.
And a couple of my favorites, well, most recently, Severance. I don't know if you've been watching that at all on Apple TV.
Mm-mm.
Fantastic. Um, but through that medium of, a TV show, like they can really play around with a lot of different ideas that I wouldn't say you can do with painting. Certainly not just a single landscape painting.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea of working in a series or a body of work does allow you to approach more complex ideas, you know,
Hmm.
coming at it from different angles. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to start talking about psychology and philosophy necessarily in a landscape painting in the way that the show like Severance does. Um, but I do like that notion. And so thinking about like that is a recent revelation I've had that is getting me more excited to put together a body of work or and sometimes when I'm thinking about a body of work it's really like this gallery needs 10 paintings so I'm going to put together 10 paintings and they may be connected they may not be um, but now I do kind of want to start pushing in that direction of there's some through line with all these pieces because it's whatever I'm interested in at that time. Does that all make sense?
It does. It's just interesting. And what I love about it too is that what I'm hearing you say is
Mhm.
that perhaps if you strayed away from the time that you commit to the demands of galleries, you could explore ideas a little more firmly on your own for things that are your current interest. And
Mhm.
then maybe you get to dictate to the gallery what you know what I'm saying? Like instead of
Mhm.
allowing them to dictate what you're doing, you offer what you have. And if your gallery, if that's somehow if it changes to the point where it's not aligned with the gallery anymore, like
Mhm.
finding some other audience to get that view, you know?
Yeah. And I should
Uh,
say, all my galleries are pretty good about not asking for specific things, and they are kind of, regionally based. So something in
mhm.
Charleston might not want a Wisconsin painting.
Right.
Um,
But you
but
feel like that personal demand in a way, like because you've
a little bit.
just the production piece, even
Oh,
like,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah. And even within that, it is much more self-imposed demands, I would say.
Mhm.
They will say once in a while, like, "Hey, we're running low. Can you get us some new work?" Um, and that's always a good phone call to get because that means you've been selling, and then that's good. But it depends on how you perceive that. Like, is that now, like we've been talking about, do I need to crank out some products, or is this an opportunity to explore some new ideas? And this
Mhm.
is a thing that the book does talk about: is how do you frame the experience? How do you frame challenges? Is it a I can't remember the exact I think the chapter was called Cheating Chaos or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but essentially, turning life's challenges into opportunities for growth. Um,
Mhm.
that sounds a little dramatic for just being in the studio, um, but that's kind of a big part of it. How do you frame this difficult situation that you're put in, or this challenge of needing 10 new paintings? Is that I have to do 10 new paintings, or I get to explore a bunch of ideas in
Mhm.
I have 10 opportunities to do something really cool and new, you know.
Sure.
And I think that does actually make a big difference in how you approach things.
Right. And it goes back to that idea of you creating your own world versus being having that dictated to you. You know, you
Yeah.
have more control over that concept when that's the goal you've created for yourself versus something that you don't have control over, which would be, um, I guess I'm not saying your galleries dictate to you what you're doing, but if that was the case, you having control over what that looks like would be much more appealing. You know, you could
Hmm.
design that yourself.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I think it's all interesting. I'm like now I'm thinking like, oh, what kind of museums can I look up? There's something about it to me that I think is nice to just have that connection to an audience that wants to view something and making work accessible to everyone to enjoy and that, notion of communication with your audience. And I'm like, what better way than it being a public service and just kind of, getting to enjoy having other people enjoy it, and
Hmm.
not have to take it home or not have to pay money for it or, you're not looking for any kind of monetary benefit or
Hmm.
praise or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's just I think that's kind of where my head and heart have been moving. um but it's good to like know that out loud,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. I was actually I was getting more and more excited about this episode because of talking about some of these things that I think have been like floating around in my head and then crystallized by the book a little bit. And then to actually, yeah, like you said, say it out loud and then have like immediate feedback, uh, I think is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you open to exploring other mediums? What does that look like for you? Because, like, to me, like, part of it, I know you could do a body of work on a specific subject, let's say, and
Hmm.
like really, really explore it in that medium that you're very comfortable with. But to me, if you're experiencing almost like a sense of boredom because you've become very skilled and prolific and successful in what you're doing, it's almost time to
Hmm.
like shift to something you don't know. So you get that exciting part of the not knowing and the developing some other skill that's a new, exciting, fresh thing to consider, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it a little bit. Yeah. So I mean, we've been talking about printmaking, and that's something like I still have all the tools for it. It would be fun to just mess around. And when you're thinking about image making in a different medium, it completely changes everything, really. You know, how you approach line, value, all that stuff. Um, so I've kind of considered that, but I feel like there actually is still a lot. Oh, I mean, there's so much within oil painting that I haven't explored.
Hmm.
Um, just recently, I've started playing a little bit around, playing around with limited palettes, or I'm not going down that road entirely, but thinking more tonally rather than like full chroma stuff. Yeah, there's just a bunch of different ways to think about even this very specific type of painting that I do. Um, so I'm starting to dip my toe outside of the comfort zone a little bit more, even with compositions that I think shouldn't work, or maybe it's a familiar subject. Actually, this painting behind me, I'm not going to show it, but it's just a Door County shoreline. It's a very familiar subject matter, but I'm trying to like push the compositions a little bit more,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, that's basically it. We're mostly playing around with compositions and color in ways that I haven't in the past. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm like branching out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, baby steps.
No, and the thing is too, I think there is something to be said for satisfaction, you know.
Hmm.
I think of satisfaction as a negative thing sometimes. Like when you're
Hmm.
satisfied, um, it means you're almost complacent in a way.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think there is something really beautiful about being satisfied. And I
Hmm.
think it's like contrary to the human condition in a way. But if
Hmm.
you're saying that, within that medium, there's still lots of things to explore and you're still really excited about it, then yeah, totally. That's fun to keep going with that. To me,
Hmm.
sometimes I'm like so easily distracted by the next shiny thing that I'm like, ooh, that'd be more fun. What's like,
Yeah.
um, and I think once you've established a skill in something, sometimes it's fun to just the unknown part is the fun part for me
Hmm.
personally.
I do find it to be somewhat cyclical. Um, it's the first time I noticed it, it was like right after, a busy summer season doing a lot of shows.
Hmm.
And then I was like tired and I wanted to be back in the studio, get off the road. But I noticed it took like 2 weeks to get back into studio mode.
Hmm.
And and then every year after that, it seemed to take a little bit longer. It was like then it was a month, then it was a month and a half. And and I couldn't really put my finger on what that was. I mean, to be honest, I still don't know why that is. Because I would think, after being on the road for a bunch of events, and then you get home, I would just be so thrilled to just be in the studio. And I think it's a combination of like a lot of stuff we've already talked about, but having something new to say, being excited about how to say it. Like that's the thing that kind of kicked me back into being excited about being in the studio just recently.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's always some combination of that. Uh, but it's different every time. So it's like it's a moving target, which is kind of tricky. Does any of that make sense? I feel like I kind of
Yeah,
rambled
I think
there.
so. No, I think that makes sense. Switching hats all the time is hard. And I think when you're
Hmm.
doing plein air, you're in a very specific mindset and um it's hard to just continually go back and forth between the two, I think,
Hmm.
personally. And yeah, we talked last time about the studio, like make the studio a place that I enjoy being in a little bit
Hmm.
more,
Yeah.
just because I've made it a bit of a stressful place to be, just because I've got too many projects going on.
Hmm.
Um, and so like returning to that kind of making your studio and the work that you're doing like a refuge, like a place that you want to be and not a place that
Mhm.
you have to be or a place that you are expected to be, um, is something that I need to work on too, I think. Well, I thought it was it's funny because I read this book in college and I can't say that I thought that in college it made sense to me because
Mhm.
I don't think I had the life experience to appreciate all of it, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and coming to it now with a little more experience, it's a little bit of a different read. So I
Mhm.
appreciated that.
Yeah. There are parts of it that feel, I mean, it's not so much the book. I think it's more the culture around this type of thinking, where, and it's more of a modern thing, I think, or at least I've become aware of it more recently, where it's all this hacking lifestyle, or just thinking about hyper optimization,
Hmm.
where we're going to use these ideas to uh, be better producers, and that sort of thing. Now, I know that's not what the book is saying at all, but um, it's like taking meditation or doing meditation in order to be more productive at work. Is like, isn't that kind of a bastardization of what the spiritual practice was supposed to be? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I'm like wary of that, even in this whole conversation, because we are talking about being happier and more productive in the studio. But like, I think for me, I'm excited about this whole conversation and the book because I'm more focused on the happy part, like being fulfilled within the studio. And if as a byproduct, I'm more productive, that's cool. But that's why, and I've said this before, why I'm like interested in the fact that you have so many different pursuits in the studio, because that I feel like that would be, following the thing that you're excited about. Um, Now, does that sometimes create a little chaos in the studio? Quite
Yeah,
possibly.
all the time. Yeah. Um, it is a gift to be able to do what we do, certainly. And
Mhm.
I think it's good to remember that you like kind of brushed upon that idea that like um if you enjoy doing it and you get into that state and you're increasing your skills and you feel satisfied with that, then it makes you a happier human.
Mhm.
Happier humans are more productive, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Not that that's necessarily the consequence that you're looking for, but kind of across the board in life, it's better to be happier.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you can, if you can get to that flow state where you feel like you're enjoying what you're doing, but it's work, but you're
Mhm.
enjoying it, then
Mhm.
that's just the beauty of it, isn't it? I mean, that's what
Yeah.
we're all kind
Yeah.
of after.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I do want to, I think it should be said, I'm a happy person. My life is good. Um, I'm not
Good.
unhappy. But I think a thing that I maybe haven't said very clearly, or we haven't, I don't know. But um, like when, maybe this was your experience, when I first started, or even in college, when I was doing illustration work, and then when I started plein air painting, I friggin' loved it. And I was so excited to do it all the time. And I'm still excited about it, but it's like the passion of the newly converted.
Hmm.
So once all the bright and shiny stuff kind of just fades away, and now this is your daily existence, it's no
Hmm.
longer novel. Like
Hmm.
novelty is a big part of it. And so how do you maintain that interest when it's the same studio? I'm going to be playing with the same 13 colors on my palette. I
Hmm.
think it's like either a shift in mindset or just finding new ways to think about all of it. Is
Yeah.
that a better way to summarize everything we just said? I don't know.
I think you're right
Uh,
about the novelty piece because I think, but to me, that goes back to this idea that you're not challenging yourself enough because it's like you've accomplished that thing that you've accomplished. And so
yeah,
you
yeah,
feel boredom
hmm
basically because you set a goal, you achieved it,
hmm yeah,
and now what? And so you have to, if that next goal is to, when you talk about like micro baby steps of your day, If
Hmm.
that next goal is to produce a body of work based on an idea of color theory,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
say I'm going to do 12 paintings and then work out what those 12 paintings are and then do that, then I feel like you wouldn't be bored because you've created a specific goal and you
Mm.
have the skills to achieve it. I mean,
Yeah.
and if that goal, it should be something slightly out of your wheelhouse because otherwise
Hmm.
you're not going to increase the challenge level and it's going to be boredom again. You're just going
Yeah.
to go through the
Yeah.
steps. So, um, yeah, I think there's lots to think about,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
Although I feel like the last two episodes we've just been kind of like, what are we doing with our lives?
Well, I mean, that was part of the whole idea for this podcast. I don't want to get up here and preach. I want this to be an exploration.
Hmm.
Um,
No, but I
although,
think,
if
go ahead.
I was just going to say for our listeners, if we have just been bitching too much on here, please, I apologize.
Well, and I'm not saying that I think any of it is necessarily negative. I think it's probably something that a lot of people experience too. I don't think it's
Hmm.
especially unique to us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we are kind of like, why are we doing this?
Hmm.
And the best way to know why you're doing something is to have a goal, and you can say
Hmm.
this is literally why I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think unpacking that is really important. And it does require a self-awareness that I think a lot of people need to kind of get in touch with
Yeah.
on a little bit of a deeper level of really understanding why they want to do what they want to do. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it can only make us better artists, really.
Oh, I did want to talk about, I mean, we don't have to go too deep into this, but I did have a list of these strategies for getting into a flow state,
Hmm.
which I think we've kind of talked about a few of them, but I'll just go through them real quickly. And if you have any thoughts, just uh, say something. So create a clear and narrow goal, like we were just talking about. So my example is I'm working on reflected light in this specific passage of a painting, not I'm working on a painting. So like that was my
Hmm.
micro goal example. But that sort of and clear goal, like be articulate about it. Um, Another thing we talked about, match challenge and skill. Always have a foot outside of your comfort zone. Reduce distractions. So like on your phone, silence notifications or close unnecessary tabs on your computer. Um, Use a fixed start ritual, which actually I like this quite a lot. I think I'm going to start doing this. So we talked about doing gesture drawings. So a
Hmm.
same warm up action every time, or put on specific music or something that is constant, like that tricks your brain into saying, okay, it is now start time. We get to shut everything else up. Um, Start with a concrete action. So again, do a sketch. For me, like mixing a couple of puddles of paint that kind of gets the body in motion.
Hmm.
We were talking about doing 30 minutes of tidying up the studio uh, in the last episode, and actually, I like that idea too. It's a ritual. It's like uh, getting your body and mind prepared to do the thing. You know,
Hmm.
it makes sense to me. I'm not saying I do it that often, but I like the idea. Set a defined time session. So I start work at 8 and then I'm going to work until 10 where I take a break. And then from 10 to noon, I'm going to work, something like that.
Hmm.
Um, Treat the activity as an end in itself. It's about the process, not the product, which we talked about a bit. And flow depends on action control, or excuse me, attention control. Um, and I have on here mindfulness meditation, which I used to meditate a little bit here and there, and I actually did find it pretty helpful for like kind of just controlling your thoughts, so
Hmm.
your mind doesn't start to wander in the middle of a painting. I haven't done it in a while. Might be. Have you ever done meditation?
I am so easily distracted that I find meditation to be very hard.
Mhm.
Maybe I should do it more because of that. But um, yeah, I'm not good at being still. I need to work on that. I yeah, like I'm a horrible sleeper. Like I sleep way less than I should. Um and like I even the lightest anything could like wake me up from like distract me from sleep even. Like I can't even
Mhm.
sleep right. So I think yeah, I do think I was thinking about that too. So that's a good reminder. I think a meditation would be a good thing for to kind of quiet your mind and like get yourself reset.
Mhm. Yeah.
I should do that too.
Uh, then I had a list of things to avoid, which kind of go along with all that, but avoid multitasking, vague goals, easy or overwhelming tasks, and interruptions, which, yeah, kind of is covered with the rest of the list. But
Mhm.
um, I like that list. It seemed all like pretty practical, you know, concrete actions you can take
Mhm.
that can set yourself up for success.
Well, you had
Um,
talked about, I don't think that I mean, we have a schedule of topics that we talked about, but I think we made a new one today.
mhm.
Um, I think the next one should be, what we've accomplished in 2025 and what we're looking for in 2026. I think it should
Yeah.
be called Goodbye 2025. Um,
Yeah,
because
I
yeah,
like
it's
that.
interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to think that through a bit.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, kind of
I
a
think that's what we should
continuation of
do.
some of these ideas. What's our last final thoughts on the book? Is it people should go out and get it?
I think that um it's a very dense text, which I
Mhm.
particularly enjoy just because I was a philosophy major and I love these like dense texts, but it's certainly not anything that you can read like when you're in your bed because you will probably fall asleep reading it.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think it has relevant information, and I do think even if it just unpacks some ideas for you on um studio practice or that anxiety versus boredom thing I thought was really interesting. So you could certainly kind of Google some of these concepts with his name and read about specific things if you don't want to necessarily delve into the whole book. But I do think it's useful in understanding why you're perhaps dissatisfied, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He has a few lectures out there on YouTube. I haven't watched any of them, but I'm sure they're probably broaching some of the subjects of the book.
Yeah.
Um, so that could be either supplemental or whatever if you don't want to read it. But um, yeah, I thought it was good. Like I mentioned, I there was a lot of ideas I was already familiar with, and I think m most people kind of have that idea of what it means to be in a flow state. Like we've all experienced that at some point. Um, and there were parts that were very repetitive when he was talking about, okay,
Mhm.
this is what a flow state looks like for an athlete. Now this is what a flow state looks like for a doctor, and you're like, okay, I
Right.
get it. you know.
Yeah.
Um, but outside of that, I thought it was good. Um, and yeah, whether or not you want to read the whole thing or find a Cliff Notes version of it, I think the ideas will resonate. Uh,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, cool. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this and hope you'll join us for next time when we talk about Goodbye 2025.
hello
Hello 2026.
2026.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so thanks for joining us and yeah, happy painting, everybody.
Happy painting.